Hey, welcome to the show. We're just about to get started. Lucy Collins, Real Estate, glad to see you. Koshari Corner, good to see you on Instagram. Peter Henson, so good to see you on Instagram. Oh man, D. Taylor, yes, good to see you this morning. Jay Sharp, good to see you this morning. So glad that you're here. Oh yeah, we're getting ready to get rocking and rolling on the Monday Mindset Movement. Yes. We're getting ready to go. Let's do this. All right. Hey y'all, what's happening? It's Robert Kennedy III, RK3. That's me. Welcome back to another Monday Mindset Movement. 15 or 20 minutes of motivation, elevation, and inspiration designed to get you rocking and rolling through your week. I am so glad that you're here with me. Welcome to those of you that are on Instagram. My goodness. Lucy Collins, Real Estate, Koshari Corner. Glad you're here. Peter Henson, glad you're here. Jay Sharp, glad you're here. Lucy J, glad you're here. Phil B, glad you're here. My goodness, so good to see you this morning. If you are here on LinkedIn, if you are here on YouTube, just go ahead and type that in the comments for me. My goodness, speaking of the YouTube folk, we forgot to send out our text message this morning. My bad. Sorry about that, people. So glad that you're here. All right, listen, well, let's get started with our show here this morning. Couple of quick things I want to share with you before we jump on in. Number one, if you want to know when we go live, just go ahead and text GO LIVE, GOLIVE, one word, to 240-55-STORY. Text GO LIVE to 240-557-8679. Second thing, if you are a real estate professional, I want to talk to you about our upcoming Video Story Bootcamp. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, go ahead and leave a comment on the channel. And if you know that you're ready to get started in getting more confident on camera as a real estate professional, shoot me a message on LinkedIn and I'll send you the link. All right. So here are our questions this morning. Why aren't you accomplishing your goals? Are you even setting goals? Or what sort of goals are you setting? Well, listen, let's talk about the goal stuff just a little bit this morning. Here we go. Bam. Yes. Here we are again. Like I said, I'm your friend, Robert Kennedy III, RK3. That's me. Welcome to the Monday Mindset Movement. I'm so glad that y'all are here this morning. So good to see you in the space and good to see you in the place. So what are your goals? How are you doing with your goals? What are you accomplishing them? What's happening in your space? We're here in the fourth quarter of this year, and if you're a planner, you're probably already thinking about next year. Or if you're not a planner, you're aware that it's coming up, but maybe you're just not ready to process it yet. Question: why don't we tend to reach our goals? Why don't we tend to reach the goals that we've set for ourselves? Nathalie Gregg, good to see you. Marathon 95, glad to see you. Thanks y'all for joining us on Instagram this morning. Why don't we reach our goals? I want to share with you an experiment that some scientists ran. So there were these scientists, and they decided that they wanted to check in about achievement and resilience, and what was the driving factor there. So they did some experiments with some rats. And what they did was they filled these buckets with water. and they put the rats in, and these were wild rats that were able to swim for a little while. Okay, so the rats swam in this bucket, and they swam to the point of exhaustion. And that time was maybe about 3 minutes or so. And just as they reached exhaustion, the scientists decided that they were going to pull them out of the bucket and rescue them, allow them to recover, and comfort them, take care of them for a little bit. Once they did this, once they recovered, they then put them back in the bucket and timed how long they were able to keep going. This time, they were not going just for 3 minutes. This time, they kept swimming for a matter of hours. What was the difference? What was the difference? These were the same rats, and as a matter of fact, the time in between exhaustion and rest wasn't really 24 hours, or it was just a few minutes. So what was the difference? Why were they able to pursue longer? Why were they able to reach higher than before? Well, here's the deal, and maybe this is the case in all of our lives. Why don't we reach our goals? Why don't we pursue our goals? Why don't we reach out to the highest achievement that we can get to, right? In the case of this experiment, the rats pushed harder because there was hope, because they thought there was a chance of success or rescue. And here's what happens with us when we don't continue to pursue. We stop because we think that a failure is the end. Again, if we go back to the same example of gyms at the beginning of the year, why do people fall off? Why do people set a goal of losing a certain amount of weight? Why do people set a goal of getting to a certain amount of being able to lift a certain amount of poundage? And then they stop. Why, when people set a goal of, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, why do they fall off from those goals? Why do they fall off from those goals? Well, because we think that failure is the end, or we think that the reason for the failure is us. And I guess the question is, inside of this, is it possible that you may not be who you think you are? Is it possible that you may see yourself a certain way and you're not really that way? Is it possible that the thing that is holding you back from wild success is simply how you perceive you? I hope you're getting this morning. Hey, Craig Davis, good to see you on Instagram this morning. So glad that you're here. Anybody else that's here on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are, X, just go ahead and type in the chat me, or type your name so I can shout you out and holler at you. Okay, so is it possible that you may not be who you think you are? Is it possible that you're being limited by your thoughts about you? I remember as a kid, I was in a youth group called the Pathfinders, and we had this huge camping event in Colorado, in Vail, Colorado. I remember the campground. It was this huge camping event. Thousands of Pathfinders, thousands of young people were there. And there was a particular activity that I was encouraged to take part in. There was a competition, and what it was, there were these bars, these pull-up bars. They were about 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet off of the ground. I'll say 10 feet off the ground. And we had to step up on a step ladder in order to get up to this bar. And the goal of this competition was to pull yourself up to chin height and stay there for as long as you could. I decided that I was going to get involved in this competition. And when I saw who the competition was, I began to get a little scared because as a kid, I wasn't a big kid. I was slim, skinny, if you will. And I was fairly short. I didn't hit my growth spurt until after my sophomore year of high school. And so I was a fairly small kid. This competition, as I saw the people that were involved in this, they were all bigger. They were all much bigger than I was. And so my assumption at that point was these kids were bigger than I am. Their muscles looked much larger than mine. Therefore, they were much stronger than I was, and they were going to last much longer than I was. So they blow the whistle and the timer begins, and we all pull ourselves up and we're holding ourselves up, and we're at chin height and we're holding ourselves up, and there are about 8 of us in this competition. And so 30 seconds passes and maybe about 45 seconds passes, and that first person drops. And I look at them and I say, oh, okay, one person dropped. One of the people that I thought was stronger than me dropped. And then a second person dropped shortly after that. And then a third person dropped. And as I began to look, a fourth person dropped, and a fifth person, and there were only 3 of us left. And I began to think differently. My gosh, those people that I thought were stronger are now on the ground and I'm ahead. And so as each person began to drop, my mindset began to shift. My mindset began to shift. And by the time we got down to there were 2 or 3 of us left, I now began to think, oh my gosh, there's a possibility I can possibly do this. I can possibly achieve this goal. And so my mindset now shifted from beating these people to achieving a certain time. So now we're at about 2.5 minutes, and I set my mind to accomplish 3 minutes. And then we get to 3 minutes, and I set my mind to accomplish 4. And just short of 4 minutes, about 3:58, that was where I ended, but I was the last person. The other 2 had dropped off at about 3 minutes, and I lasted just about a minute longer than anybody else. And here's the thing, based on looking at this, I could have decided that I wasn't going to do this. Not because of the competition, not because of the type of competition, and not even because of the other people that were in the competition. I could have decided not to do this because of who I thought I was. I could have decided to step out of this because of who I thought I was, what I thought I could accomplish, what I thought I was capable of. I could have opted out because of who I thought I was. And here's the deal. Sometimes we fail simply because we have chosen to repeat the unsuccessful version of ourselves to ourselves. Sometimes we fail because we see ourselves as already not succeeding. And we choose to follow, or we choose to buy in to that person. Said another way, there's an author who wrote the book, The Achievement Habit, Bernard Roth, and he said, we don't realize how many of our fixed views of the world are based on limited samples of reality. I'm pausing for effect. I'm pausing because I wanted that to sink in. Craig Davis, good to see you. Foxy BQ Boutique, good to see you. Right? We don't realize how many of our fixed views of the world are based on limited samples of reality. We see ourselves as failures, and therefore we are. We see ourselves as failures, and therefore we choose not to succeed. Quite often, the goals that we set are based on how we see ourselves. I was checking out something on Instagram this week, and I came across this great reel, and I just had to share it with you because it really encapsulates a lot of what we're talking about here this morning, and a lot of why we tend to not achieve at the level that we need to. So check this out.
Your goals are keeping you poor. That's what my mentor said after I told him my 5-year plan. He said, based on your goals, I can tell you how much money you have and how much money you're going to have, because poor people set small goals. And I was slightly offended because I'm like, to me, these goals are kind of big. And that's when he said, you're right, they might be, but they're not bigger than you. And that's when it clicked. The mistake that I made was not setting goals that were bigger than the man that I was. What I mean by this is I wasn't setting goals that would stretch me. I was just setting goals that I knew I could accomplish. And the entire purpose of a goal is not to achieve the thing. It's actually to become the person who can achieve anything. And you have to set goals that are bigger than the human being that you are today so that you can grow to be an even doper human being tomorrow. So as we approach the last 3 months of this year, ask yourself, are your goals bigger than the human being that you are currently? Because if not, there's a good chance that your goals are keeping you poor. That's what my mentor.
Man, listen, I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. Your goals may be keeping you poor. You may be deciding to operate in a certain way based on how you see yourself, and you're not seeing yourself as bigger than you are. And I'll go back to what Roth, what's his name? Yeah, the guy that we just talked about, Bernard Roth. I'll go back to what he said. Maybe you're not who you thought you were. Is it possible that we can rethink who we are? Is it possible that we can think about ourselves differently and maybe accomplish differently because of that? So as we go through this time together, I like to do what I call action steps for the coming weeks. And there's an action step that I want to share with you. I call it the 10-4 exercise. Okay? And here's the question. If you wanted to make the greatest impact you possibly could. Okay, let me back up for a second. I want you to write this down. This is what the exercise is. And you write at the top, if you wanted to make the greatest impact that you possibly could, and you only had 10 months left, what would you do? Okay, so that's 10 months. And I want you to answer the same question again with decreasing time frames. If you wanted to make the greatest impact you possibly could, and you only had 10 days left, what would you do? And then you can go to, if you wanted to make the greatest impact you possibly could and you only had 10 hours left, what would you do? What about if you wanted to make the greatest impact you possibly could and you only had 10 minutes left, what would you do? Does that time context change how you operate, right? And if so, how? Undertake that. Take on that 10-minute or that 10-10-10-10 exercise, that 10x4 exercise. If you wanted to make the greatest impact you possibly could and you only had 10 months, 10 days, 10 hours, 10 minutes left, what would you do? And then ask yourself the question, action item number 2, action step number 2 for this week. What is it that I most want to accomplish or achieve? Write that down. What is it that I most want to accomplish or achieve? Action step number 3 for this week. Write down what challenges you the most. What challenges you the most? Is it getting up in the morning and hitting that snooze button? Is that a challenge for you? Is it being consistent with your family? Is that a challenge for you? Is it doing your best at work? Is that a challenge for you? What is it that challenges you the most? And write down the answer to this. If you were able to solve this challenge right now with the resources available to you right now, how would you do it? Okay? It's not if I had a different job or if I had more money or if you have, with all of the resources that are available to you right now, how would you solve this challenge? And the last thing that I want to share with you this week is, as you look to accomplish, as you look to set goals, as you look to achieve, I want you to change your language. I want you to delete the word but from your language, because when you use the word but, it negates everything that came before it. I want you to delete the word but from your language and choose the word and instead. I want you to delete the word try from your language and say, I am, I will, I can. I want you to delete I have to, I need to, I should, I would. Instead, change that to I get to, I will, I am. I want to encourage you. I want to push you. I want to empower you to take on these challenges this week. I want you to do the work because we are different than who we thought we were. We've got so much potential. We've got so much power, and the goals and the ideas and the focus that we have for ourselves can be so much bigger than what we think it is right now. I want you this week, I want to challenge you to re-envision who you are and what you're capable of. Most of our challenges and all of our hesitation comes from who we think we are, what we think we're capable of, and sometimes even what we think we deserve. So I want to challenge you to re-envision who you are and what you're capable of this week. Hey y'all, today is Monday and we want to shift your mindset to a place of growth. But it doesn't just start and stop on Monday. We want to encourage you to take your Monday mindset movement into tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Yes, be curious, make a choice, move, start a movement, be a movement. Join me next week on the Monday Mindset Movement. 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, whatever time it is on the eastern coast of the United States. I will see ya. Peace.